This is episode 95 of the first 10 minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
And I'm Steve Halliwell.
And I'm Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at the first 10 minutes on Twitter, you, the listeners, voted for us to play Human Resource Machine. Steve, you played this game. Take it away.
I did. Human Resource Machine, Wikipedia tells us, is a visual programming-based puzzle video game developed by the Tomorrow Corporation. The game is released on Microsoft Windows, OS X, Wii U, and has additionally been released on Linux, iOS, Android, and the Switch.
Nice.
All the things.
Human Resource Machine uses the concept of a corporate office worker assigned to perform tasks that involve moving objects between an inbox and outbox and to and from storage areas as a metaphor for assembly language concepts. The player works through several puzzles to construct a program to complete a specific task. That's what Wikipedia thinks this video game is.
That must be very, very close to what it says on Steam, surely.
Exactly. The slightly more zhuzhy version of that on Steam is...
How do the French pronounce that word, Steve?
The on Steam is program little office workers to solve puzzles. Be a good employee. The machines are coming for your job. From the creators of World of Goo and Little Inferno.
I know those games.
The machines are coming for our jobs.
Yep.
I'm going to say too soon, Steve. Too soon.
Yep.
Okay.
And this game is in the genre of programming, indie, puzzle, casual, simulation, single-player, education, touch-friendly, great soundtrack, difficult. It's got a great soundtrack.
We got it.
Casual programming.
It's a casual programming, difficult game.
Is this something that happens frequently in programming circles, Steve, where you complain about scrubs and casuals?
Yeah, especially when they're coding it in assembly. Yeah.
That seems legit.
Yeah, totally. All right, so I hit play. If you'd like to review the footage, you can totally do that. There should be a link below to a YouTube video of me playing through 10 minutes of this game. It's kind of irritating to watch back, which I did, to make some more notes, because there's long stretches where you can go, oh, Steve was thinking about what to do, because nothing is happening. And then I just...
Oh, the cursor's moving. That's the really cool thing, is that, like, you can see the cursor is giving indication of your train of thought.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I hit new game, I get to choose from a save slot, and then it gives me 4 profile pictures to choose from that are... I don't have a better way of describing it as they look like they're from Little Inferno or World of Goo. So they're exaggerated features. They're very, I suppose, childlike it would be a way of describing it. Like, it's thick lines and simple features. They're sort of
Big
stick
eyes.
people. Yep, and they're kind of stick people-y dimensions with, like, clothes stuck on them.
Kind of like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Tim Burton's sketches.
Yeah, kind of.
Of characters. Yeah.
So everything has that layer of milieu and sort of light sadness that sprinkled on top of it from their other works.
Very brown.
Yeah, a lot of browns, a lot of faded things, a lot of detail work in other elements of, like, frayed edges, so things feel like they're worn out and not perhaps taken the best care of.
Yeah.
So I guess choosing these 4 profile pictures. I think there are 2 like men-looking pictures and 2 women-looking pictures to choose from that have like they all have a different color palette to them. So, like, one's blue, one's green, one's purple, one's yellow, I think. So I choose one of those, and that becomes my ID badge of who I am as a new employee working for. I'm not sure if I'm working for the Tomorrow Corporation or if I'm just working for something.
Let's say the Hudsucker Corporation, just to tie it into something else. Yep.
Cool.
Let's go hooping.
So then I get to what is my level select, which has the metaphor of selecting a level on an elevator. So it's like I'm looking at the back of an elevator, and there's kind of like elevator buttons mixed with a railway map,
right?
Which is my level progression. And I'm at level 1, the mailroom, and there's a not even a post-it. So clearly, there's been some budget cuts around here. There's just a yellow bit of card that's been taped to the wall that says "Welcome, employees," with a smiley face under it. So I go into this first level. And I'm greeted with a top-down view of an empty room that has a conveyor belt on one side that says "in" and a conveyor belt on the other side that says "out." There's sort of a tiled floor. I'm looking down on this area from the roof.
Yep.
It's all 2D art, but there's perspective drawn into the art. Right. The character I chose earlier is standing in one corner. And there's a bald, glassed man sitting behind a desk, sort of mid-screen at the top, who tells me what I need to do. It sort of welcomes me, but sort of dismissively. He appears to be the bureaucrat assigned to make sure that I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Down the bottom of this screen is my GUI, where I have a back button, a music button, and then I have like tape deck controls of stop, back, play, forward, and a speed control, which has a 1 play arrow on one end and a slider that then goes up to 3 play arrows on the other end.
Yep.
So if this was SimCity, this would be my Turtle 2 cheetah.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other side, on the right side, where there's otherwise just sort of a wall sloping towards camera, there's the UI element where basically the entire game takes place. And this only takes up about a quarter of the screen. And on this first level, it just says mailroom. And so everything has like this paper with sort of like manila folders kind of metaphor going on.
Right.
So things look like they're made out of paper and that are pasted onto each other or taped, etc. So things look like they're constructed, they're skeuomorphic, if you will. So my instructions are this. It says drag commands into this area to build a program. Your program should tell your worker to grab each thing from the inbox and drop it into the outbox. And so as this level starts up, the in conveyor belt has 3 green-colored blocks come in that have the numbers 8, 2, and 6 on them. And I get a little pop-out next to this panel on the right side where there are commands. There's a inbox command with an arrow that points towards inbox within the word inbox.
Nice.
And another command below that which says outbox, which has an arrow on the other side of the word pointing outwards from outbox.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get these 3 things from one side of the room to the other. So I drag inbox, outbox, inbox, outbox, inbox, outbox, and I hit play. So this means that then my little character follows these commands one at a time. These commands get line numbers assigned to them. So my character goes to the inbox, picks up the first box that's there, which causes the other things to shuffle forward on the conveyor belt. And they run over to the other side of the room and they drop it on the outbox. Then the next command is an in, so they run back, and so on and so on. So they move these 3 things over. The conveyor belt on the outbox starts moving when they're all done. And then I get a yay! Like literally the children chorus that you'd recognize from other video games of theirs. And I get a, what is it? It's a clipboard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a clipboard. With 2.
Totally blanking on the word. A clipboard comes down from the top of the screen held by a hand that is my report of like how well I did. And for this level, it's just like, yay, you did it. And another character sort of
like a tick is drawn. I think, isn't there? Yeah.
So that's my level 1. That kicks me back to my elevator with the level 1 mailroom confirmed, and 2 is now illuminated above it, which is busy mailroom.
I think what the other thing is probably worth noting is that it's advancing you through years here as well, right?
Yeah, and so that when I start level 2, it then says year 2. So as if I have spent a year doing this job of running from one side of the room to the other, mindlessly moving packages, regardless of what they are, forever.
It's like you're some sort of computer, Steve.
Yep.
Or a resource.
Yep. So message 2 is the same task, but it tells me I have a new command. So now I have the inbox command, the outbox command, and a blue command, which is jump. So now it wants me to move.
It's a platformer.
Yes, it's a platforming game now. So it's
Frog fractions.
Not even Mass Effect had a jump.
I know. It's game of the year for every year that it's come out. So my task is the same. It's move everything from inbox to outbox, but now there are more than fit on the conveyor belt. Like I can see that they're running off screen.
Right.
And it's saying with this new ability, you can complete this assignment with only 3 commands. Instead of having a matching in-out pair for every item, it wants me to use jump to complete this with only 3 commands. Tony, using the power of these 3 commands, how might we get everything from inbox to outbox?
I can't remember what the other 2 are.
It's fine. We have in-out and we have jump. And so if one were to read aloud...
okay, sure. What does jump do again?
Jump moves execution to somewhere else.
Well, I guess you could go inbox, outbox, jump.
Yep.
Back to inbox.
Yep.
And you're kind of done.
That's it. And that's what it wants me to do. And so the way that
now I'm coding in assembly. I knew I could do it.
Yay.
So when we hit the play button, we see a little execution arrow that's showing us what my character is currently doing, like which command they're executing.
Yeah.
And so the way that the jump command metaphor works is it drops it down 2 little anchor points that go in this stack of commands to complete.
Right.
And you can drag this around independently. So there's a blue arrow linking them. Mm-hmm. When the jump command is reached, the little execution head, the playback head, will move to the other end of that jump command.
Cool.
So we make a little endless loop. So we go inbox, outbox, repeat. So we go...
I love that movie.
Yep. You go...
It's the unexpected sequel to Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Print 10, go to 10. So that's what we make. We do that. I hit play, and I then drag the playback speed head to maximum, so my character goes... runs backwards and forwards very, very quickly until there's nothing left in the inbox. It's all been moved to the outbox, and I get my yay, and I get another
year has passed.
Another year, and I get another big tick from the big clipboard in the sky.
Mm. Almost like a Monty Python-esque clipboard in hand.
Kind of.
There was much rejoicing.
Yep. So next up, it wants to give you some more commands. Now it wants me to learn to use. Yep, it wants me to learn to use registers. And so this is very, very tutorialized because the next level tells me that the inbox isn't working. So the inbox has a stack of minus 99, minus 99, minus 99, minus 99 in it. It says, but the bosses have told him that you need to put bug into the output conveyor belt. And so in the middle of the room where previously there was just a big empty space, there's now a 2x3 grid of letters. So we have a U, J, X, B, G, E.
You can use some of those letters to spell bug.
I can. And so nice. I have new commands. I have a command called copy.From. Copy.From is in red rather than the blue or green of the other commands that I've used so far. And when I drag it into my stack of commands to execute, it has a number next to it. So these other commands haven't had a section next to them. There's been an empty space next to them. These ones have a number, and that number is referring to one of these slots on the floor. So for this one, I need to get bug into the outbox. So it says that it wants BUG, and I make the assumption that it doesn't want me to put those in reverse order. It wants them to be in the order that they will move out of the conveyor belt, not so that I could read them correctly. So
there's a gub.
Yeah.
You got a gub.
Yep.
For some reason, Steve has spelt PUBG.
Yeah.
which is very close.
It's written PUBG UX. Yeah. So I put the commands in. I have a copy from, outbox, copy from, outbox, copy from, outbox, with different registers being used each time. I hit play, I hit fast forward, and I put bug in the outbox, and I get a yay and a report card. The next level teaches me to use swaps. So the next level wants me to then not only use the inbox and the outbox and the registers, it wants me to use a copy to and copy from to swap the order of the incoming commands. So at year 4, at my 4th year in this job,
Yes.
I am now just arbitrarily switching the order of things that are coming into my inbox.
That sounds about right.
Yep. I'm on the track. This is like the inverse of how to succeed at business without really trying.
Yep.
This is how to really not do very well at business with quite a lot of effort and a lot of time.
Yep.
Harder and dumber.
Yep.
Nice.
So I complete the swap task, which requires me to copy a thing to a register into a temp variable, and then pick it back up after I've copied straight from inbox registers. Then I get a cutscene. This cutscene is in the break room. There are 3 characters talking. I've come in at the end of a conversation. They are a yellow person, an orange person, and a purple person. They appear older. Like my character appears like maybe I am a child, like in terms of like proportions. These seem like they're adults. Everything is sepia toned, and there's always a vignette on the screen as well. Okay. And so it looks like they've just finished up their coffee, and one of them says, "Back to work, everyone," and these characters sort of trot off and go off to the side, and a TV in the background turns on and tells me that there are loss of power throughout the city. And during this, the sad music from World of Goo kicks in.
Ooh.
I don't know if you remember the sad music from World of Goo, but it also, I believe, has the great soundtrack tag. It's quite memorable, and definitely lets me know that this sepia toning isn't because this is an old-timey factory. It's because things are quite bad. But then, back to my elevator music with my jaunty music. My jaunty waiting elevator music with my boom, bee, boom, boom, bee, boom, bee, boom, boom, bee. But now it is mixed in with my sad tones from World of Goo.
That's interesting.
Yep. Guess what I learned next?
Can I guess first?
Sure. I've got...
How to play the double bass.
Yep, that's it. It's time for some slap
How to
bass.
achieve happiness.
So up next is conditionals. So we've got loads and stores.
Got to keep that hair healthy.
Yep. We've got swaps.
Yep.
It's time to condition. So the new command that I get is a jump if 0. And so I'm not sure if this was just a convenient metaphor, or if they're probably trying to have a go at bureaucracy.
Right.
Because this level is we want all of the things that aren't 0. So you create a program that gets the inbox, does a jump if 0, and does an outbox command. So all of the zeros get thrown away.
Right.
The next level, when I go to the next level after that one, the bureaucrat who gives me my missions, well, they don't even really give me my missions. They tell me the intro to my mission.
Yeah.
Told me that the boss is upstairs. Didn't care for that too much. And apparently they've swung too far. I need to correct. So this time, only zeros. So now I write a different program where I'm only copying zeros out.
Was there a hidden Bret Easton Ellis level coming up next?
Yeah.
Where you're only taking numbers that are less than 0.
Yeah.
Matt, on the off chance you're listening, that reference was for you. Carry on.
It's a really good level. It spends a really, really long time describing the quality of the desk.
Yep. So there's a branch in my path here that I get to do where my little elevator thing looks more like a subway route.
Right. Okay.
Where I have a tripler room and I have the Zero Exterminator room, which is the Preservation Initiative is a level actually after my 10 minutes that I described, but it was worth mentioning. So the level where I don't need zeros is called the Zero Exterminator. Level after that is called the Zero Preservation Initiative. The other thing that I learned to do is adding, I believe, in my tripler room and my doubler room. I get an add command that will add whatever block my character is holding to a given register. So it also has a number. So you copy things into a location on the floor, and then you can add something else to them by picking them up. And then you get a new block, which is those two numbers added together. So one of my missions was simply to double all the numbers. So you grab the number, put it in a register, add it to itself, put it in outbox.
Right.
And so on. So to give you the levels that I don't get to outside of my 10 minutes, because that was as far as I got, I do not get to see what is in the Octoplier suite, or the Tentra compiler, or the sub hallway, or the equalization room, or the maximalization room.
One of those things is not quite like the other.
Yep. But I do get to see some more not quite post-its on my elevator back wall, and one of them is a fork, which is A, B leads to C. It's excellent. Right. And another one which has little happy sunshines next to size and speed. So these are the things that get introduced after I've made it through my basic tutorial. For every level, I get my grading report that tells me if I have completed the level in two different ways that it wants me to try and optimize my solution for. So every level then gives me you could have completed this level in as few commands as, and it tells you if you did that or not. Mm-hmm. So it might say, well, you could have done this with 6 commands, but you did it with 8, so you can totally do better if you want to. And the other thing that it measures me against is how many steps the command takes to complete. So if you're using a loop, it counts every step that is taken through that loop, and it tells you how many steps you took and what the minimum number or what the optimal number is that you could strive for. The other thing that it points out here is that will not always be the same solution. Mm-hmm. Right? The solution that gives you the minimum number of steps will not always be the same solution that gives you the minimum number of instructions.
Yes.
Yep. Which I think is a nice touch to give you different ways of approaching a puzzle.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of the quick overview of what I get through, and I've used a bunch of terms that the game doesn't necessarily use. Like I don't believe it calls them registers.
Yep.
No.
And I don't think it calls them swaps. I don't think it calls them stores and loads. It tends to use natural language where it can. Right. So inbox and outbox, that makes sense. Jump,
that fits with the corporatized theme of the game as well.
Yeah, of just moving data around in this mailroom.
Yeah.
The jumps make sense and happen to be the name of something you might encounter in programming.
Yeah.
If you're doing low level, typically they're not called jumps in higher level, but they make sense here because they jump over commands to go somewhere else. So yeah, I have some things we could talk about, but I'm sure you have questions.
Yes, I do. Steve, do you think this game wants people to know that it's actually about assembly? Or more broadly, that it's actually about programming principles?
Yes, I think it does. Simply by the fact that it says that you program little office workers to solve puzzles.
Right.
I don't think it doesn't go. So,
can I give you a little more context in terms of my line of thinking? How is this? what's the differentiation between this and, say, other programmy games like TIS 100, Shenzhen IO, or Transistor? No.
Or Quadrilateral.
It's a misleading title.
It is.
Transistor.
So
because in the case of Zachtronics stuff, at least with the later titles, it's very overtly this is programming.
Yes,
and this is hardware. So
there are certainly games that are far more. No, this is actual programming.
Yep.
To the point that there are games built around the idea that there is a server running that you are literally writing JavaScript on.
Yeah.
That is always running, and that's how you compete with other players, by writing better code.
Yeah.
So this game doesn't go out of its way to hide the fact that it's programming. It's not trying to be that kind of like slimy feeling educational game where they're like, oh no, you're not learning anything.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah. Like they're not trying to hide what they're doing.
Yes.
But they're not going out of their way to one-for-one recreate what you might see in an actual programming language.
Right.
So what is here is just Wikipedia described it as assembly language-like, and that's kind of correct. Like it's a low-level language, like a very low, close to hardware set of instructions that I'm using. But it's first and foremost, at least in what I've seen in the 10 minutes and what I recall of what I've played beyond that 10 minutes,
right.
It's artificially constraining what you would find in those environments to make interesting puzzles.
Right.
Whereas a lot of other programming games would just flat out refuse to do that because that's not teaching you to be a better programmer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we shouldn't make you solve a puzzle by using iterative subtraction when you could just use a multiply.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this program, this isn't about that. Like this game makes a puzzle sort of a mind-bending, twisting puzzle by artificially limiting the tools that you would have.
Yes.
So I program. I don't normally program in assembly, but it's frustrating to me in some of these earlier stages where there's not commands. Where it's like, well, I know you want me to solve this by going jump, 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 that all weave in and out of each other, and is like, it's 20 commands long, and it's the most perfect example of why spaghetti code is a nightmare that you've ever seen.
Yeah,
because like half of it is jumps, right? So they're not trying to teach you good programming. It's a programming as the construct to make puzzles. The other thing that sort of related to that I think I struggled with when I first tried to play this game when it came out is that the metaphor for registers is like slightly different to what my head understands registers to be.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who listening, registers are the little bits very, very close to where instructions happen in your CPU, where data is corralled before operations happen. So you'd have things like the name of two registers and an instruction that happens on them, and then where that result gets put. Mm-hmm. And so because in this game, like, you are a floating register.
Yep.
It just sort of it's a slightly different thing for my brain to wrap around.
Right.
That always just feels a little bit different.
Something interesting that just popped into my head when you were talking about the idea of this sort of what this game expects you to do is what could be considered bad code. Do you think that has any sort of thematic connection to the failing business aspect of the video of the game itself?
Yeah, I think that's intentional, and it's sort of that echoed thing of like, you spent a year doing this, and also this is a really bad way of solving this problem in the first place. And from what I recall, the ongoing the Steam description tells you anyway, is that you are replacing humans with programs, and the outside world, we got a glimpse in this first trailer, like there are ongoing loss of power throughout the city, One of the trailers I got about 20 minutes into the game is informing you that an army of robots has approached and just stopped at the edge of the city.
Right.
And that they're not responding, they're not moving, and the police are investigating, and they recommend that you go about your daily lives. So things are bleak, things are not in a good situation. And yes,
perhaps
I feel
all
that
of the robots were affronted that there were so many jumps happening.
Yeah.
Mm.
They're like, look, we really appreciate the cache locality that you're striving for here, but come on.
What do we want? Cache locality.
Yeah.
When do we want it?
What a cost.
0.
Yeah.
This should not have more jumps than an episode of Sliders.
Yeah.
So there's a deep pull.
Yeah.
So I'm for the sake of argument.
Yep.
I'll flip it around and say, could this perhaps be trying to make us humans sympathetic to the plight of devices that perform incredibly menial, straightforward operations thousands of times per second?
I mean, it certainly could be. I don't get a sense what its goal would be in illuminating that to us.
Sure. Maybe a less roundabout way of asking the same question is, are you meant to feel sorry for all of the humans, just your human, the robots on the edge of the city? Do you have any sense of what the rhetoric is?
I mean, what I get a sense of in my 10 minutes is that none of the people in this corporation seem to want to be here. They just kind of are.
Okay.
My assumption is that you got to pay the mortgage, so I work at the corporation where we move things from the inbox to the outbox.
Okay. Or like got to pay the mortgage, and there's no confirmation as to whether or not this army of robots outside is spelling imminent doom. Therefore, show up to work, continue working.
Yeah. The thing that I appreciate about the way this game is constructed, in how it echoes the bleak visage that it paints, and sort of the bureaucratic nightmare and inefficiency that this world exists in.
Yep.
Is the way that it gives you a fail state when you write a sequence of instructions that doesn't give the correct output.
Yeah.
It doesn't just say to you, oh, that didn't work, do you want to try again? It, in world narrative, tells you this is not the output that the boss expected. The boss expected this exact output. So that to me feels like another little touch to layer on that what you're doing probably ultimately doesn't matter.
Right.
We already know what this is meant to be. We're just making you jump through these hoops for no reason. Like, you're the triple checker of this data.
Yeah.
They already know what it needs to be. They've already done it. They've already figured it out. But you're going to spend a year confirming it.
Yeah. You haven't been hired to think critically. You haven't been hired to problem solve. You've been hired to do what you've been told to do.
Yeah.
So you're stuck in a Terry Gilliam film.
Kind of. But worse. Yeah. One of the...
Because there's no humor.
Yeah. It's like there is some sense that my character is unique.
Right.
Because is that though? Because your name, when you create your card, like you're assigned the name Employee 1.
Yeah. So the reason why I say that your character is unique is for lack of a better term, the bureaucrat that sits at the desk that gives you your little intro outro to each level. Sort of calls out that they don't understand the instructions you're being given.
Right.
And so some of that reads as, well, if you, the player, can figure this out, you must be really smart, because I can't. That's why my job is to check that your outputs match the outputs that I've been told you're meant to get, kind of thing. But also, I think it adds the other thing it's serving is... The thing I'm thinking of in particular is where one of the characters says, when you get the add command, they're like, I was never very good at this math thing anyway. hope you are, but I've heard you don't need to be good at math to make this stuff work anyway.
Right.
It's like not only giving you you're special because you can figure it out and they can't, but also giving you that other angle of being a little bit hopeful and a little bit motivating in perhaps their educational goals. Right. Like, just because you don't like math doesn't mean you can't code.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, one might say you don't need to be good at math at all because the whole point is that the computer does the math.
Yeah.
You just need to be able to...
Just don't make me do any logic, Steve, please.
Well, you're a shit out of luck.
As long as there's no logic and no syntax, I'm on board.
As long as there's no stepwise logical problem solving, then everything will be okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, I'm kind of going to pick on you a little bit here.
Okay.
Because I know you.
Okay,
and I know that you're not overly a fan of order of operations puzzles.
Yeah.
Discuss.
You are right, and I don't know if that would bug me if I played a whole bunch more of this game.
Right.
I don't remember why I stopped playing this game when it first came out, other than perhaps I went, this is a cool thing, but I have other things I need to do, or other games I want to play, or whatever.
I feel like programming now.
Yeah, like, you're right, I should just go code something. Yeah. But it's a good point, right? Like, the first few levels, it doesn't give you those challenges yet. In the very, very early parts of the tutorial, it's not saying, cool, you did this in the minimum number of steps, or you did this in the minimum number of operations. Once it does introduce those, it gives you a really upfront way of like debunking that mindset if you do have it. Like if you're looking at this puzzle and going, well, this is stupid because there's clearly one way to solve this, and it's just me fumbling around until they're in the right order. When it then goes, cool, you did it, but you used 8 instructions and you could have done it with 6.
Right.
Your solution took 56 steps and you could have done it in 24. So it's a really upfront way of letting you know that, no, there is a better way of doing this. There's more than one way of solving this puzzle.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, there's a similar parallel to, I'm playing Mario and Rabbids at the moment.
Yep.
And at the end of each encounter in that, it will assign you a rating based on how many turns it took for you to complete that particular encounter.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is a number that nets you a perfect rating. And if you go over that, that's an opportunity to return and see whether or not there was another way you could have gone about doing that.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing about that is that I don't think this game would work if it had been constructed where there was only one solution to a problem.
Yes.
Just because that's the nature of programming, is that there are, there's always going to be a dozen more ways you could have got that thing to happen the way that it did. And it's,
as Qui-Gon Jinn famously said.
Yep. And programming is more about determining the appropriate choice of those potential solutions rather than being able to get a solution.
Right.
And so this game then is setting up an optimization problem. Like it calls out size and speed as the things you're optimizing for. And so in terms of optimization, we might say we're optimizing in terms of time or space. So we're making the thing run faster, or we're making it use less memory. And those things tend to be a trade-off. Do we use more time so we can save space, or do we use more space so we can save time, etc. So it doesn't suffer from that problem a lot. In the earlier levels, it's there, but they're super early tutorial levels that you blaze through very quickly. The only thing that I think potentially might sort of be in that category is, as these get more complex, there's going to be a solution that you're going to tend towards.
Yes.
Purely because the way that you create your stack of instructions is much like this corporation, suboptimal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's fucking brutal. You got suboptimal.
Takedown.
Yep.
Yeah.
Calling them out.
Yeah. There it goes. Ruthless.
And it's one of the things that strikes me as odd about this game. Is when you look at the screen, the layout of how they've used space, most of it is dedicated to the inbox, the outbox, and the registers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the 10, 20, 30 minutes that I've played of it, I'm looking at one quarter on the right hand side for 90% of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if either of you had thoughts on why that might be.
Well, you focused on the solution, yeah?
Yeah.
The outputs are the part that take precedence over everything because that's what the boss demands.
Yeah. So it could be like thinking it could be intentional as a way of reinforcing their theme.
I mean, the outbox is it's the thing. It's the only thing that you have control over. You don't have control over what's sitting in the inbox waiting for you. You don't get to determine what things you have at your disposal or what resources or tools you have at your disposal or what you're supposed to do with them. The only thing that you have any control over is what goes into that outbox, and whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing. So
yeah, and I guess and the speed at which you watch that play out. So you also have access to some play controls down the bottom.
Yep.
And I think part of it also maybe with what you touched on, Steve, about having to spell a word out, but actually spell it out in reverse. But and I think that side of things and kind of like double checking yourself and making sure that things are going through sequentially the way that you want them to.
Yeah. The other thing that came to my mind in thinking about why is this laid out this way, I think is down to me being someone who spends time with code.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm looking at this and going, well, if this was my IDE, I would really rather have a lot more space dedicated to where I put instructions and a lot less dedicated to my memwatch window. And so I think that gives us some insight into who this game is for.
Right.
Right.
You've answered one of my questions without me having to ask it.
Aha. It's because my assumption following that train of thought is that this game isn't for programmers. This isn't a video game veneer around a programming challenge website or like the Euclid challenges or whatever. Yep. Take your pick. The space that I look at and go, I really wish I could drag these commands in this giant area, is where I'm assuming that people who aren't used to stepwise logic would actually be like pathing out, like drawing lines with their fingers. Right. It's like, well, I'll move this here, and then I'll duck it over there, and going from sort of planning that out visually, like maybe even getting out a pen and paper and trying to sketch it out in that space, and then converting that to their instructions.
Yeah.
I don't think I did it in the 10 minutes, but outside of the 10 minutes, I actually used the step controls.
Yep.
So I mentioned earlier you have a stop, a play, but you also have a step back and a step forward button. So if you encounter an error in your program, the bureaucrat goes, that's not what's meant to happen. And they'll give you errors ranging from your outputs don't match to you've just tried to run an instruction that can't run. So if you tried to call an add while you're not currently carrying a number, it'll go, we can't add nothing to something, so you need to fix this instruction here.
Oh, I assure you that you can, Steve.
You can add something to a 0, cannot add something to a nothing.
I see. I would like to make a bold statement.
Go.
This is generalizing horribly, but Steve, Lara Croft Go is by extension just a large abstraction of this exact same thing.
Okay, cool. Let's keep going with that. Lara Croft Go, or Hitman Go, or I assume that the Deus Ex one,
as
well. is like this game in that if you could go, okay, run next instruction,
Yes.
and then reorganize your instruction, like plan your next instruction as you had already executed your initial set.
Yep.
And so in those games, through this lens, you're rearranging, remixing, and rewriting your command stack as you're moving through it.
Yes.
Whereas if you look at this game as one of those, one of the Go-style games, I think it starts looking more like an old Rainbow Six or an old Ghost Recon game.
Right.
Whereas, like, so here's your Lara Croft Go level, but you're not allowed to start moving until you've given Lara all of the possible commands she could need to successfully complete the mission.
Yeah.
And then you hit go and you just watch it, right? When I say...
How would something like Frozen Synapse fit into this perhaps clumsy analogy?
Yeah, so it's much like Frozen Synapse always is. It's the midpoint. It's the nexus of all video games. So yeah, Wii Go's are kind of a midpoint there.
Yep.
You get to plan some of what happens next.
You get to plan out what you hope will happen without the knowledge of what other forces that you don't currently have awareness of are going to do to fuck you up.
So Frozen Synapse is the quantum computing version of Human Resource Machine.
Look out!
Another game that comes to mind in that sort of like you're planning out your steps but you remix them as you go is Door Kickers.
Yep.
Which I also enjoyed quite a bit of. Yes. I think that's the big difference there is do you have to get it right in one or can you adjust as things go wrong?
Yes.
Right, and so the constraint here is it has to be right from the beginning. If it's not right from the beginning, then something will go wrong at some point and you have to reformulate. You can't just go, oh, well, I'll just run around this block 3 times.
I'll just wing it. Yeah. I'll wing it and see if I can figure it out.
It's fine. The snake's like 3 steps away from me. I'll just run away from it and hope something gets it. Even though, as I recall, you kind of do end up playing those games by figuring out what all your steps will be and then trying to do them rather than trying to do them in the moment.
By the time you have finally cracked it, if you have to start again, you are just performing the exact series of steps in the right order that you need to. And it feels pretty good. When you get to that point,
It's there. Those games have that really tight mastery loop.
Yep.
So if that came sort of same kind of like Dark Souls or Bloodborne feeling, like I am really not getting this to, wow, I am godlike at this tiny little bit of this game now.
Yep.
And look, now on to the next one.
Seeing as we're doing a bunch of kind of comparisons here between other types of game, where do you see something like Big Pharma fitting into this?
So I've only seen video of Big Pharma. I don't know if I've actually played Big Pharma.
Right. Because it has a very specific series of constraints and limits and steps and different kinds of operations in the form of different devices to do different things to different drugs that have different categories and different strengths and concentrations.
Yeah. But it's still it's a stepwise logic puzzle mixed with topography is the wrong term, but it's how you physically lay out a circuit more than how you.
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both because they're heavily interdependent, and then that relates to what specific materials you're putting through it. Because you could have the same layout of things in the same sequence and put different inputs into it and end up with just a giant pile of garbage. Yeah. So and then it has the kind of additional or different sort of layer where it's possible to just make a bad thing and it goes out the door and you lose a ton of money. Yeah. You're just burning money by doing all of the things. Yeah. And also, I guess one of the major differences in that case is you're kind of setting what your end goal is. Right. It's like, well, I want to make this thing and it would be nice for it to be this pure, but that's going to cost me a lot of money and a lot of time, and I'd much rather make a shittier version of it that I can just pump out really quickly and make less per unit, but it's done.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, the proximity here in what I'm doing to like actual programming practice is still much closer than that for most of these other things that we're talking about.
Yes.
It's like some of what it makes me do in these puzzles is like sanity checking variable state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing fail-safe conditions for my puzzles so that I don't get bad data in my outputs. And so sort of that, the analogy to the real-world impact of what you're doing is very, very close. It's very obvious to see. So I have spent probably a shamefully small amount of time in Minecraft. So, as I understand it, Minecraft has redstone. And
Correct.
if you want to get
Can confirm.
real fancy, Minecraft is written in Java, and also I have seen people write plugins to allow you to execute Lua code on blocks based upon events that can be driven by world state, redstone, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To either of you who have done anything at all in Minecraft, how does what we're describing here in Human Resource Machine like approximate to the things that you can do with Minecraft logic?
Have not played enough to get to that point.
I've played a bucket load of Minecraft, and that is not the part of Minecraft that I dig, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yep.
I walk around and punch pigs.
Nice.
And dig holes in the ground.
You've turned it into an asset puncher. Excellent.
Yeah.
It is
True survival game.
It is a quintessential asset puncher. Yes.
My experience with Minecraft was digging as deep as I could for about 20 minutes, and then falling into lava and going, well, okay, I'll watch videos of this for the remainder of my days.
You're like, oh, I see what the kids are into. I get it now.
Yeah. I get your Minecraft.
Sorry, Steve. I'm aware such things exist, but there is a lot in Minecraft.
There is,
and that's not an aspect of it that floats my boat.
That's fair enough.
Yep.
I really just wanted to raise it because I know that there are elements of that sort of the stepwise logic that you can do in the game where there is no goal. It's like it's a very, very different framing than we see here, where it's I know exactly what you need, but I'm going to give you a range of tools and not tell you how to do them.
Right.
Whereas in Minecraft, it's just sort of like, well, here's an if.
Yeah, and the rest is up to you. The goal is yours to set, and the parameters are yours to define.
Yeah.
Sick of people bugging you to stop if-elsing into oblivion?
Yep.
Come on down.
So, as I understand it, we've all seen or played some of this game before.
Yeah.
Kind of the only other thing that I wanted to bring up that we hadn't already kind of talked about was one, I both hate and love that once you learn a command, it's just there forever.
Yep.
It's like even if a puzzle doesn't require you to use one of those commands to solve it, it's still there.
Yeah.
And I really dislike that in terms of like, here is a puzzle. It's like here is a puzzle. It's a 1,000 piece puzzle with 1,010 pieces in the box.
Yeah.
But also is another one of those great parallels to actual programming. Well, you could do anything.
Yeah.
But do you really need a square root for that? Or does that really need to be a web service? No.
Which connects really well to that idea of acknowledging that, hey, you could have done this in a few less steps if you want to jump back in and play around with the toy box a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, Steve, are we ready for a 10-minute check?
We can. The only other thing I wanted to float was that this has been tagged as educational game. in Steam at least.
Right.
And for me, I feel like that's pretty hidden. Like, this doesn't present itself as, let's learn. Like, it's not presenting itself as a tool that you'll give to a child, or not even a child, just to anyone to learn a new skill. But it's been tagged as educational. Now, I'm going to do some cursory Googling, and while I do that, do either of you have thoughts on why that might be, or do you think it is a good educational tool, etc.?
Perhaps it's educational in that it's seeking to ask you to look at the industry within which you work and see whether or not it's likely that you are to be replaced by machines in the near future.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a hidden message to the transport industry, to the automotive transport industry.
Maybe.
Steve, perhaps if I was going to split hairs on this, I would say there's a difference between something being educational and something increasing awareness of something.
Yeah,
I could totally get down with that. I did some quick Googling.
Yay!
And I found that TAS 100 also an educational game. Some other things you might be surprised are educational. Polybridge.
The Earth.
Kerbal Space Program. That's less surprising.
Okay.
Universe Sandbox.
Right.
Sure.
God of Word.
Oh, I thought you were going to say God of War for a second then.
God of Word. It's a typing game, so you can see that. Universe Sandbox 2.
YouTuber's Life.
Probably. So, I mean, a lot of the things that Steam thinks are educational are more flatly educational,
right,
than these are. With the potential, our oddball here of Europa Universalis. I suppose it has real history in it.
Well, there's possibly things in the game that will link directly to Wikipedia articles.
It's a good point.
Yes. There is the potential for educational material there.
Yep.
That's more self-directed learning than
it is
than education, but yeah.
So it's educational with a tilde at the end of it.
Yeah.
Only you can prevent education.
Ouch! Oh, too real. Fuck. That's possibly the heaviest truth bomb you have dropped yet on this podcast, Steve.
You're welcome.
I need a pick-me-up.
God.
I totally need a pick-me-up after that horrifying revelation.
I get the feeling that a song will pick you up.
Yes, I think it would be the case. If only somebody had a 4-line stanza.
Well, you're half in luck. In that I have a 4-line stanza that I can sing to you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it'll pick you up.
Oh.
But that's how Springsteen rolls. When I don't find out ahead of time what Springsteen sends to me. I just receive the text prior to recording, and I go with what the boss tells me to do. Yep. He's the boss. What the boss says, I obey. Relevant
to the game in question.
Indeed it is. So with that in mind, Springsteen always impressing us with his taste in video games. This is what he had to say towards Human Resource Machine. Well, my name is Employee One, with no mouth. I try to scream. I'm a loser. I'm not clueless. This one truth becomes a dream.
Yay.
There you go.
I feel much better now.
Yeah, right?
That was very side lifting.
Yep. I'm now sad about something else.
I've moved in a direction.
Yep. All right, so in terms of a 10-minute check, do I learn how to play this game and do I know what it's about? Yes, I have a very good sense of that very, very quickly. Because I think a lot of that is owing to this being a puzzle game. in its construction of like, here is a thing to solve. Here is your limited tool set. Solve it. And it lays out in front of me very, very quickly in like the first 4 levels how it's going to add twists and complications on what the puzzle is and how it's going to extend the mechanics of how I have to do that. So I have a good sense in my mind that at some point there will be probably potentially even different categories of commands that I need to choose from. I can see this going to a point where it's like, oh no, the copy from command isn't working. That's unfortunate. I've already seen both letters and numbers in the inbox, and it's required both numerical values as outputs and letters as outputs. I imagine at some point it'll go, oh no, they got them mixed up. So all of those sort of things I can picture in my mind as things that I'll have to do in the future. And right now the interaction method is just the mouse cursor. I'm clicking and dragging things, and that's all I need to do. And it's always sort of from one place on screen to another. So I have a very good sense of what I need to do and how I'm going to do it.
Cool.
Which brings me to the plugs.
Woo!
So, if you've enjoyed this and you'd like to let us know how much you've enjoyed it or what specific element you've enjoyed, perhaps which bit we should copy to or copy from which register, you could send us an email. The email address will be contact@thefirst10minutes.com. Alternatively, you can find us on social media, where we will be The First 10 Minutes. And the social medias that we are on are Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Patreon. Did I forget any? That sounds like it. That's a pretty good list.
It is a good list. We have a bunch of Let's Plays that we're doing on our YouTube channel. So in addition to listening to this podcast, it'd be great if you could duck on over to the YouTubes and check out our channel. And if you dig the things we're doing there, then hit that subscribe button. It would be very much appreciated. Hey, Steve, what if people want to get in touch with you specifically?
You could totally do that. You can find me on Twitter. I am @_Steve Helliwell. You can also find out all of my accounts and some stuff that I'm up to, etc., on my website, which is stevehelliwell.com. Aaron, where you at?
I'm right here.
Oh, good.
I'm present. I'm in the now.
Where are you virtually?
Virtually?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Where is Internet Aaron?
Where is Internet Aaron? Internet Aaron doesn't currently exist. However, Internet Aaron totally still has active accounts that just aren't being utilized right now. So, if you would like to get in touch with me and not hear back, you can find me on Twitter @rundownflamingo. I do check in occasionally, so yes, do get in touch if you do want to talk to me. Similarly, you can check out essays that I have written on narrative design in video games, effective narrative design in video games, at @pushingb on Twitter, which will link you to pushingb.com, where you can find said essays. And you can get in touch with me directly on that website there too, if you would like to talk to me about that stuff. Hey, Tony.
Yes?
I'd like to ask Steve how to get in touch with you. How can I get in touch with Steve to ask Steve how I can get in touch with you?
Well, look, probably the best way for me to pass that sort of information on would be for you to contact me personally on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Carlinskald. That's KALINSKALD. And I also do a game developer interview podcast called Downloadable Context, which you can find at downloadablecontext.com or on Twitter @DLContext. I think that brings us to the end.
It does.
Some sort of terminus.
Yep.
So there's a fast approaching semicolon. What's an appropriate programming term here?
I'll find you one that no one will understand.
Ooh, nice. That's exactly the kind of reference that I like.
Yep.
That's what we trade in here.
Yep, we've found our ASM Int 3. There you go.
Love it. So good. And on that
Classic.
happy high note, thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
Later.
Bye.
See ya.
Error.